Krishnan, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is on his way to the region again. You know, it's his 11th trip since October the 7th last year. Once again, he's going to try and bring about, negotiate some kind of ceasefire, both in Gaza and here in Lebanon. But here tonight, the prospects really don't look good. You know, as far as the Israelis are concerned, and to some extent the Americans as well, Hezbollah is simply a terrorist organization. That's all they see. But here in Lebanon, it's so much more. It runs these financial institutions, it has social services, it has members of parliament. It's entwined into society here. It is both connected to the state and a state within the state. So when you hear people like the Israeli foreign minister saying they're going to crush Hezbollah, they're going to destroy Hezbollah, it's not that simple. Hezbollah is not going to disappear in a plume of black smoke caused by an Israeli bomber. A plane was waiting on the other side of the terminal when the Israelis struck one of their targets last night. Beirut airport is still functioning, as if things were normal, when nothing in Lebanon is normal at all. This morning in Shia, in Beirut's southern suburbs, we saw the damage to another branch of Al-Qard, Al-Hassan, a lender that grew increasingly popular after Lebanon's banking system collapsed during the economic crisis 4 years ago. The sign for a beauty parlour on the same site somehow survived. People go past and see a building once so familiar, now just a pile of rubble. It was 12 stories high. The Israelis gave residents of apartments above just an hour to get out. We don't know how many did. There's no doubt that the Israeli attacks on branches of Al-Qard Al-Hassan will have damaged Hezbollah's financing. The institution was central to the operation of Hezbollah in Lebanon. But it will also have damaged the prospects of more than 1.8 million Lebanese, many of them poor, most of them Shiite, who relied on it for small-scale loans. Al-Qard Al-Hassan, which is sanctioned by the US, shows how Hezbollah is enmeshed into Lebanese society.
It provides microloans in exchange for gold as collateral from individuals. They say that it's open to everyone who wants to use it, but I believe, if you look from the geography of its branches, it's distributed in the constituency of Hezbollah and the Amal movement as well.
The late Hezbollah leader even touted for business on its behalf.
Dear brothers who have some money at home, put it in Al-Qard Al-Hassan, because the banks won't accept us. The answer to American attacks on the Lebanese people is to put our money in Al-Qard Al-Hassan.
It all makes today's meeting between the US envoy Amos Hochstein and the Lebanese Prime Minister seem even less likely to bring about a ceasefire, which would require Hezbollah to adhere to UN Resolution 1701 and pull back from the southern border. A government minister from Hezbollah was equivocal, to say the least.
We affirm that we are going to implement the 1701, but after the ceasefire.
So 1701, Hezbollah will move back north of the Litani River after a ceasefire.
It will be a discussion. It will be a discussion. It will be a discussion after the ceasefire, and these kind of discussions are done by the Speaker of the Lebanese Parliament and the Prime Minister.
So it's not a guarantee, it's a discussion. The Israelis are not going to agree a ceasefire and it's no guarantee.
At the end, we have to secure a ceasefire.
On the rubble of Al-Qard Al-Hassan, a man plants the flag of Amal, a Shiite movement allied with Hezbollah. Neither the Israelis nor Hezbollah seem inclined to make the concessions necessary for a ceasefire. Both say they are fighting to win, whatever the cost.
Well, hospitals and shelters for Palestinians seeking refuge have come under siege in northern Gaza as Israeli forces intensified their attacks on Hamas. Medical supplies are running desperately low. The UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, UNRWA, has accused Israel of preventing supplies of food and medicine from reaching areas in the north of Gaza, and a warning there are distressing scenes in this report. The devastation in northern Gaza is near absolute. Homes reduced to nothing. More than 600 people killed, according to the health ministry in Gaza, since the beginning of the military operation in the north just over 2 weeks ago. Schools are also being hit as Israeli defense forces continue to attack what they say are legitimate Hamas targets. This is Jabalia Secondary School. The building was hit this morning at around 9:30, killing 10 people, including women and children. The scene was filmed by a nurse on her phone as she tried to help the injured. "Stay calm," she says. "We need to stop the bleeding. I can't find anything to stop the bleeding." She tries to help this child and pulls out a piece of cloth from her bag to bind the wounds. Hospitals have also come under fire. Medics say they haven't received medicine or food for days, and now the water supply has been cut. Dr. Mossab Nasser is in touch with doctors there.
The situation is really dire. The three major hospitals in the north, Gamal Adwan, which is a children's hospital that serves 400,000 people in the north, have also been bombed. The Al-Auda hospital has been also bombed, and the corridors are full of bodies of people that have been killed in the past few days. This is an appeal to everyone who is watching to do whatever we can to stop this madness.
Hamas fighters in Jabalia have been fighting back with anti-tank rockets and mortar fire. The Israeli military claim they have managed to dismantle Hamas infrastructure as well as kill some of the fighters. Israel allowed in 50 trucks of medicine and food this morning at the Erez crossing, far short of the 350 trucks minimum demanded by Washington in a letter to the Israeli government last week. Today, the United Nations accused Israel of blocking the aid from reaching the north where it is most needed. Well, the strikes in northern Gaza were watched by a group of hardline Israeli settlers gathered for a two-day event where they drew up plans for their future homes in the Gaza Strip. The Gaza Resettlement Conference took place in Masaf Habazak, just 4 kilometres from the border. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Porrick O'Brien was there and joins us now from Tel Aviv.
I wanted to preface what you're about to see by saying that the views you will hear don't represent the majority of people who live in Israel. Although that said, there is some reliable polling that suggests that between 25 and 40% of the population here supports some form of settlement inside Gaza. The awful trauma of October the 7th attacks have pushed those figures towards the upper end. Also want to preface it by saying that while we were at this event, a group of protesters showed up outside. They were friends and family of hostages still being kept inside Gaza, and they were scathing about politicians on the right who they perceive are weaponizing the events of October the 7th for political reasons. Blowing bubbles as Gaza burns. This weekend, over 100 people died in the north of the Strip. And as that was happening, not far away in southern Israel, settlers held a two-day event.
This whole area is one big terror cell. It has an infection. You have to take out the infection.
They set out their plans for Jewish outposts inside what will be left of Gaza if they get in. Celebrated the festival of Sukkot as the smell of homes on fire wafted in from the west. We spoke to one of the organizers. What you're about to hear is hate speech. We decided to broadcast it because, as you'll see, these people have some very powerful friends in the Israeli government.
That is when you have a cut in your body, and that cut, it has an infection. You have to take out the infection. When you take out the infection, then it'll be clean again.
In terms of cleaning out this infection, as you call it, what would you like to see happen to the over 1 million Palestinians that live there?
I think there are many nations, including Ireland and England, who would welcome them to come and live in their
mass deportations to other countries.
Yeah, just like happens in Ukraine, in Russia, and any other place in the world you have a war.
Does that idea not offend?
You have refugees.
Does that idea of mass deportations and cleansing the wound not offend your sense of Jewishness, given your people's history?
No, because when the evil is so bad, you have to do something with it to make peace with evil.
That has very dark historical resonance. That sentence you've just said. In terms of Jewish people,
right now,
the
dark I know was what happened a year ago here in Beirut. That was very dark.
That evening at the main event, settler families set up their sukkahs overlooking the strip. There's been an exponential rise both in the number of settlements and in violence directed by them against Palestinians in the West Bank since the October the 7th attacks. These people see the war in Gaza as the ultimate supplanting of Palestinians there. We meet Danny and Hadar Penton and their children bedding down for the night. They're so committed to the idea of resettling that part of their promised land, they'd bring the children to live in Gaza today. I understand your beliefs and I understand your ideology, but you're not honestly telling me that you would bring your 7 children into a war zone today to live.
אוקיי, כן, אני עושה את זה עכשיו ולא יקרה להם כלום. אלוהים שומר עלינו ואני מאמינה בלב שלם שזאת המשימה שלנו.
Daniela Weiss holds court that evening. She's seen as the grandmother of the modern-day settler movement, and now she's something else as well. Friends with Israel's new far-right settler power elite, Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister, and Itamar Ben-Gvir, Minister of National Security, who we'll meet later. They're the settlers' champions, no longer manning outposts, driving ministerial cars. Do you feel like this is your political moment?
It's not a moment. It's the beginning of an era. It's the beginning of a period. It's a big change. The left is losing its rule, and the right came to power, and this is to stay.
The main event the following day, a showcase of political muscle. When Daniela Weiss says this is a new era, this is what she means. Settlers are no longer a fringe group of militant zealots that are irrelevant. They are sharing the stage with government ministers and MPs. This is what real power looks like. May Golan is Minister for Social Equality. She is from Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party. She wants all Gazans to leave the Strip. But what of those who don't want to leave? If it ever gets to that point, what's the government's plan?
Well, I'm not talking about plans right now.
So you don't have a plan for that? Just to be clear, you're bombing Gaza, but you do not have a plan to move the people who don't want to leave.
I said one question, but no problem. We're doing, and we will do, everything that we need in order to protect the lives of our people, women that were slaughtered,
no, I get
girls
that. Sorry,
were kidnapped.
you said one question. This is still the same question. What I need to ask you is, do you have a plan? Do you have a plan to move the Gazans who do not want to leave? So you do have a plan.
That just like in your democracy, these people have the right to speak their mind. They have the freedom of speech, and those people that the bomb that you just heard are the monsters that are trying to kill us for the last year. That
was outgoing, actually.
That was slaughtered. There's thousands of bombs, and while we're talking, there are rockets at the south and the north of our country.
So you have a plan
you should deal with the
to move the Gazans who don't want to go, but you won't tell us what the plan is.
Tool possible.
Other politicians, the warm-up acts for Ben-Gvir. Convicted of terror-related activities as a young man, now Minister for Security. The British government reportedly considered sanctions against him. Ben-Gvir, British television, are you worried about British sanctions? Are you worried about British sanctions? Can I quickly ask you also, for the Gazans who don't want to leave, What's your plan for them? For the Gazans who don't want to leave, what is your plan for them? Can I ask you that, sir? Excuse me. British sanctions, no, are you worried? What's your message to the people of Gaza at the moment as they're dying just a few miles from here? Can I ask you that, sir? We left them to the dancing, to the drum and the bass of religious fervour and power. The music echoed across the field. Probably didn't reach northern Gaza, drowned out there by the sounds of something else entirely.